Two quick things. First, Meta has censored me and removed my Facebook group. If you're not already in my email community, please be sure to download one of the free gifts that you see here in the show notes and join my email community. Next, this episode you're about to hear is an encore presentation from my Psychedelic, Sacred Medicines, and Soul's Purpose Summit. It's with one of the most renowned thought leaders out there, and I thought you would enjoy it. Thank you for being here. I am so honored to have Allyson and Alex Grey joining us today. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Beth.
Great to see you, Beth.
Such an honor to have you and hear all about your path. I'm so excited to have Allyson and Alex Grey joining us today. So if you don't know Allyson and Alex Grey, I suggest you definitely check out their work on Instagram or CoSM.org. Follow their website, which is listed right here on the speaker page. Allyson Grey is a painter, social sculptor, and Alex's creative and life partner since meeting in art school in 1975. Chaos, order, and secret rotting comprise the essentialized worldview portrayed in Allyson's paintings. Chaos represents the material world, order, the interconnected realm of energy and light, and secret writing articulates the mystic realm of creative expression. Allyson has long been an art educator, event organizer, and a muse to artists worldwide. Alex Grey is an American visual artist, author, and teacher known for creating spiritual and psychedelic paintings. He works in multiple forms, including performance art, process art, installation art, sculpture, visionary art, and painting. He is also on the board of advisors for the Center for Cognitive Liberty and Ethics and is the chair of Wisdom University's Sacred Art Department. He and his wife, Allyson, are the co-founders of the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, otherwise known as CoSM, a nonprofit organization in Wappingers Falls, New York. And you can check out their links, like I mentioned, right here on their speaker page. So Allyson and Alex, thank you for being with us. My first question I always ask all the guests here is, what brought you onto your path of putting your visionary art out there in the world, creating the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and brought you to what I would call your life's purpose? I'm curious, what was your path to getting to where you are now?
Do you want to start?
Well, I think the Sacred Mirrors were really inspired by Allyson after we did a performance together, and I had made charts that people would stand in front of. They're like life-size charts of a couple of systems, like the life energy system, acupuncture meridians and points, and chakras and auras. And
the performance was called Life Energy.
Yes. Yeah. And also a painting of the nervous system. And there were a lot of elements to the performance, but Allyson and I were walking home after, and she said, I think the most successful part of it was these charts, and maybe what you ought to do is to create a painting series based on that whole idea, going through the body, mind, and spirit of an individual. And so that was the birth of the Sacred Mirrors. It was 1978, and I started painting them in 1979. They finished in 1989, and we had made some amazing frames to go around them that were exhibited at the New Museum in 1986. So that body of work became part of the Sacred Mirrors book, and then we both had
then we had an MDMA experience in 1985 where we realized the responsibility of exhibiting those as a total unit. I mean, we wanted people to be able to stand in the middle of them and experience the entire power of the sculpted frames. It was cathedral-like already because we had made the frames in a kind of a Gothic style, but it was sculpted with the cartoon history of the universe kind of thing. So, and then Alex's paintings were in those. And we knew that it would be our life's work to create this chapel where otherwise we would just sell them all off one at a time. People were interested in them and they were beautiful, but we wanted to keep them together. And that would take building a chapel. And so that's the driving force beyond that came behind our sole purpose together. We each have our own body of work, and then we created CoSM as Chapel of Sacred Mirrors to build an enduring sanctuary of visionary art to uplift a global community. That was our mission that we had to come up with in order to be a nonprofit organization, and then thereby later on become a church, which wasn't really our initial intention, but it did become a spiritual organization, a place where people came with their spiritual inner stories, about their uplifting, if their God contact, their primary religious experience, and they identified with this surrounding of spiritual art.
And nested in the middle of the sacred mirrors was a representation of an experience that Allyson and I had back in 1976, which was kind of on LSD, and it was a melting down of our identity with the physical body and entering into an energy field that was an infinite energy field. We had all the beings in the universe, it seemed, had become this toroidal kind of sphere of light. And the light that was uniting all beings was love. And so that was such a strange and impactful experience. It led to new bodies of work for both of us. And we each tried to symbolize this mystical experience. And so our path was catalyzed by the sacred substances, and it led us in the direction that we're still manifesting.
Right.
Wow. I love hearing that story. Thank you so much for sharing, because I mean, that's the whole intention behind this series, is to explore this idea of these medicines, these psychedelic, these mind-altering, consciousness-expanding medicines can open us up to much more than just an interesting experience or, seeing visuals, but maybe it's really helping align us to this place of what we're here to do, or why we're incarnated here at this time, to be of this fullest expression. Now, I'm curious, back in the 70s when you had this experience, I'm curious, was that your first LSD or your first psychedelic experience, or was that just your first together that spawned off your work? And, do you think you would have been in a completely different direction had you not had that experience with psychedelics?
I had my first psychedelic experience in 1969, before I knew Alex. And I had had 3 years of experimentation with various psychedelics, and done psychedelics in many ways, climbing a mountain with friends, sitting around a fire, going bicycling, like everybody. And all of those experiences were evolutionary, I feel. Some people call them recreational. I call them self-revelatory. I think that all of those experiences, even with groups, dancing, jumping up and down to music, these are self-revelation. This is tribal. This is your group, your peers that you're developing yourself with. But then in 1971, I read Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now, and it suggested to me to do psychedelics in a different way. And that was in a dark room by myself. And I did that and just lay on my bed, and I saw secret writing wafting through the air and hovering over all surfaces, like my body and all the furniture. And it was made of light. And it was ineffable. It was unreadable, untranslatable language made of symbols, but it was, waving through the air and wafting over surfaces. And it was the language of the divine. I had never really believed in God, but then I felt this is what people call God. I'm seeing this now, and it was a revelation to me. And it changed me and my direction as a person very dramatically. I had to find a whole new group of friends, and I had to find a place to meditate because that's what Ram Dass suggested. So that went on for the next 3 years with yoga and meditation with Yogi Bhajan and things like that. But then in 1975, we actually met in a class in 1974. It was a performance art, conceptual art class. And in 1975, I invited Alex to my end of year party. He was invited along with a lot of other classmates and friends. I didn't really know him that well, except that he was a very interesting young artist. He did some weird shit, seriously. And I was always curious and always attended his performances because he would put up little flyers and things. So I would always go because they were very about the self, which was my work too, but very self-revelatory and revealing and raw. And I was very interested in his work. So I invited him along with our professor to my end of year party. And he took LSD in my apartment for the first time, sitting on my handmade couch that I made with my life-size doll that she played with all night. And he asked me to talk with him the next day. He called me and he said, I'd like to talk to you about my first LSD experience. And I went out with him and we never left. We never left. Seriously, we just stayed together until we moved in together very soon thereafter, because it was the end of school and we were both moving. So we moved in together and we've been together ever since, 47 years. And I think I recognized that you had a God contact experience, which I was very secretive about up till then, because people weren't, it was taboo. It was kind of, the whole spiritual thing was kind of taboo in those days, 70s, and marriage was unheard of. Nobody was getting married, but we did.
I love this story. I'm like, wow, you can't make this up. It is just so beautiful, incredible.
Well, I recommend that everybody make up a good story.
No.
Or
live an actual good story.
Live into it.
Live a good story. Take acid with your partner. No, I'm kidding. No, maybe. It's interesting to see how far you've come, right? Like you were way ahead of your time, really working with these psychedelics and bringing it into your work, and then going on to create this quite large, the church, and I would say it's beyond just a church or an organization. To me, it's a community. I live by Alex and Allyson up in the New York area, and I've been kind of hanging around CoSM on and off for years, even back in the old days when I didn't even know where I was. But now, you guys are just, people see you as like one of the leading, I would say the leading artists, as visionary artists living on this planet right now. And I'm curious, as you've witnessed this psychedelic renaissance over, as they're calling it, but the last maybe few years, even though we know it's been around much longer, but it's been this kind of exponential growth where now there's legalization, there's decriminalization, there's people speaking much more openly about it. How do you feel about this, and how have you seen it change the artists that are coming into CoSM over the years, or the classes, or the people who are even just starting to follow you or go to all your, live YouTube events? Do you think it's like, I'm curious to see what your opinion is on this big exponential boom in the psychedelic and, sacred medicine world?
I think it makes visionary art a lot more, and psychedelic art a lot more accessible, and people see the value of it because it's one of the ways that people get validated in their own psychedelic experience, as they might feel a little alienated if they don't have a community to talk to about it. But if they see visionary artworks and things like that, then they say, well, it was something like that. And they can see that other people have had the experience too. So more and more people are having those experiences. And there's amazing animators, and the digital media now is exploding. And I think that the opportunities for both the artists and for the psychedelic communities that are growing up and finding ways of bringing all the threads together in the psychedelic world, because that's a lot bigger than we knew it. Psychedelic art from, poster art from Haight-Ashbury, that was what people thought of as psychedelic art, when I was starting out. And there were a handful of painters that were, I think, visionary artists like Ernst Fuchs and Matty Klarwein and Alan Atwell, and a number of people who had been making paintings that were related to their visions. But it was a much smaller world at that time. And so now it has, just exponentially grown. And we have a lot of amazing artists, that all around the world that are bringing their visions into form. And, we may have been part of the catalyst of that, but I think that the wider acceptance of this subject has really helped to kick it into high gear.
I think it's the acceptance that is really the opening right now, because when I was in the late 60s, you could get LSD very easily, and everybody was doing it. Every college campus was filled with people doing it. And Woodstock Festival, which is not far from you or us, you had 500,000 people got together. Like, we're looking at Burning Man, they have like 80,000. Woodstock had 500,000 people doing LSD together. They closed the New York Thruway. So, it wasn't like LSD was hard to find, but it was extremely illegal. And so you had to be very careful about who you talked to about it. And people were imprisoned for as long as 20 years for selling it. And today we're able to talk about it openly and freely, and it's just marvelous. It makes me want to cry when I see a series like How to Change Your Mind, and all of our old friends are on there just spilling it, This is what we all knew was how good it is for you. I mean, Alex was severely, unhappy when he met LSD and became a mystic overnight.
It was, it was the shift from being suicidally depressed and then a remarkable opening, a turning point, literally, in my life, in her apartment. So
And of course, that's what they're studying now, is the end of depression, the end of addiction, and a lot of behaviors that we all would like to, you know, the betterment of well people, really,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Wow.
So,
That's incredible, that story. That, even just this one experience that was, quote, recreational. I personally try not to even divide it into recreational versus ceremonial or intentional, because I don't know about you. I mean, I'm sure from these stories, but you go to Burning Man, you take some mushrooms, you have some of the most spiritual experiences ever. So to me, there is no like one or the other. It's kind of this blurred line where, hey, depression can be wiped away in an instant in one session. Not to say it's a cure-all, but it's definitely been known to do that. So I'm curious, what is your view on this series is this year called Soul's Purpose, this interconnection of psychedelics and soul's purpose, and creating it into something that is actually tangible in the 3D world, meaning like putting your art out there, starting a business, helping others, whatever you're called to do. Do you feel that these medicines are tapping into something that we would believe to be a soul? I mean, I'm curious what your take is on this notion of soul. Especially with your artwork, it's talking about, the energy body, this connection of oneness. Do you believe that these medicines are tapping into this something greater? And I'm curious what your view is on that.
Absolutely. I think that we live in a sacred reality, and many times we're just not aware of that. And so they can really, even for an atheist like myself, before I took the substances, it can become an opening. Not for everyone, but I think that whether we call it God or the divine or sacred reality, or we just say it's the great mystery that it's opened us up to, I think that they are catalysts for what people would call our soul's energy. And this is why they've synergized the creative state and unleashed a lot of creative power and in people, and why we really are forwarding, the message that creativity is a spiritual practice, and that anyone and everyone is creative, and in whatever they do, whatever kind of form they want to bring it into, and that many times that these experiences can help catalyze that for us.
yeah, I think that a lot of people may go into LSD or psychedelics without knowing what their soul purpose is. And it allows you to listen to the God within and to hear what you really want to be doing and to feel a sense of possibility around that, extracting the negativities and all the barriers that you've put up around that's impossible. So it allows you to say, yes, I love playing guitar and I like playing with a group, or have always wanted to be an artist, but my so-and-so wanted me to be something else, and I'm not happy with that. So you're very in tune with what doesn't make you happy and what would make you happy, and then you feel this sense of potential, like I have it in me, I could do it. And that sometimes is hard to maintain, but it is possible to maintain. I mean, the idea of building a temple, we had no funds. We were just, I mean, we weren't poor artists, but we were working hard, And, we just decided that, if people in history had built temples, that it might be something our community of psychedelic experiencers might like to join us in doing contemporary sacred space. That's what we did.
Hmm. Beautiful advice. Actually, this brings me to my next question, because it's like you said, there's so many people listening. Maybe they have an opening, especially the last couple years. To me, it's kind of like, how do you live over this pandemic without questioning why we're here now and what's going on in the world and what are you doing with your life? But I mean, I know I went through it and a lot of my clients have gone through it, but a lot of people get stuck in this place of like, well, I can't, or I'm afraid, especially, the artists of the world. It's been this thing, at least here in America, where it's, the whole notion of starving artist, or it's so hard to make it as an actor, or, make money off your art, which we all know is, it's still limitations because people are making money all the time. But I'm curious, what advice do you have for someone, maybe an artist or someone who's called towards this path that you're on now? What would you tell them, in order to make it real? Like, what's some advice you would give them?
Well, if they've expanded their consciousness and they've opened their hearts uh, and have a sense of compassion for themselves and for empathy with the world and what the world is going through and what their friends and family are going through. Their creativity may have a direction already. They may be drawn toward finding a way that their work can help serve the emerging kind of positive possibilities for themselves and for their friends and for the world. And that finding that, as you were saying, soul's purpose is I think a crucial thing. I'd write some of these things down, but more important than that for a creative artist is to stay creative, stay making something, let it be fun, let it feed on the most positive and really the openings that you have. For us, it's been not so much about making a decision about something, but opening up in these spaces, and then something gets thrown into those spaces. Your mind becomes empty and open to the divine, and a gift shows up. And to discover that gift, sometimes one has to, ask, invite, and and on multiple occasions, and keep notes, and in your journeys or after your meditations, because we absolutely encourage that people take up a spiritual practice of some kind of meditation to ground the journey in. They may have gotten a glimpse there of a sacred reality, and they can bring it into their daily life through a daily practice, something that doesn't, have to take you to, the furthermost dimensions, and by integrating that path, because it may take a while. You have to be patient with your creativity as well. And I think that, then when you feel like you've got something or a body of work, then, you share it there's so many different ways of sharing your artwork now, you know, and um, so, and if people don't connect with it immediately, that doesn't mean that you should let it go. You know, you may be way ahead, you know, and people just don't understand it yet, you know. So have some real compassion and patience with letting this emerge. And if you have to do something, you know, that may not be your soul's purpose, you know, for many years I did medical illustration and other kinds of jobs and things like that that I didn't feel were my art, my ultimate art. But I was always doing that, you know, on the side and paying the bills and helping support the family with these jobs, you know. So
I just like to mention a riddle that I like that goes with your question and what you were saying, and that is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you basically just have to have an action list and do it every day. Like, make it something that is a practice, like you were saying, every day. You can't think of the whole elephant, but you can think of one bite at a time. And the other thing to remember is, come from being. If you think you're a musician, be a musician. And what do musicians do? So it's be, and then it's do. And you have to do what musicians do, which is play music every day. And then you have what musicians have, which is, you know, gigs and promotion and a band and equipment and everything. But it's not have, do, be. It's not buy everything you need and then like put it all together. No, it's be, come from being. And when people ask you, who are you or what do you do? You say, I am an artist. And then you be an artist and you do what artists do and have what artists have.
This is, I love that you say this. This is one of the first things I say to my clients. I say, look, the very first way to start a business is you just declare it, you know, like have a conversation with the universe, you know, and it's, you know, Alex, what you said is so important about really being in this present moment, like just keep doing it, you know, and kind of being almost in this relationship with what it is you're putting out there, and not, you know, again, I think a lot of this is our society is just so focused on the having part, you know, or like, oh, I must have this first and then, and it's like, well, maybe we've gotten it backwards this whole time. So I really love these perspectives you shared, and I do really encourage the listeners to put your creative work out there. You know, like you said, there's so many new ways right now. We have the internet, we have social media. We never had these back when you guys started, or even back when I started, you know? So why not just keep going? And I actually wanted to ask you about this because I've been noticing this over the years, just with my own personal journey, that, you know, if I've had to actually make space for creativity, whether it's in my garden or working with beehives or, you know, actually doing like physical painting or something creative, you know, like I make hot sauce, or whatever it is. But I do find that, you know, very often I'm stuck in this you know, conversation around I don't have time for creativity. And we've seen this so much, especially here in the Western world in the US, where our society is just so busy and people are trying to just, you know, make ends meet. You know, I'm curious what your views are on creativity for the future, because I'm starting to realize this is one of the missing things, I think, in our society. But I'm curious, have you seen a shift in the way creativity is approached or like given respect, and how do you think it will shape the direction the world is going?
well, it's so important at this time, I think, that we open ourselves to these creative possibilities, because we hear a lot of bad news, and so that kind of shuts you down. And we want to open up to the higher possibilities of what could be, and creative ideas can come from the infinite source, the supply that we know is boundless. And so by inviting that kind of gift to drop into our space from the highest, to serve the highest purpose for everyone, is really what we're after. We want to do work. Our soul's work is going to be medicine for the world. And so, without getting too highfalutin, you want to, have the creative path open and give it time. Just like your spiritual practice, people don't have time for that either. But it's the most important thing that we could do, is to give space for that and to come into the present moment. We can mix it into everything we do, before we have a meal, the prayer before the meals is something my grandparents did, and I was always curious about it when I was a kid, and it seemed kind of outdated or something, come on, do we have to do that? Is that real? But once you have a context for the sacred reality, then yes, you know that every moment is sacred and can be recognized as that and held as that. So,
Yeah, I was going to say that you can be creative in your mind, but unless you have evidence, it's nothing. It's just a thought in your mind. I mean, if you're a musician, if you're being a musician, you're being an artist, you have to make art. It has to be manifest in the physical world. So in order to have something manifest in the physical world, it involves time, space, materials, and a concept, a subject. So those things are very important, and you have to make time every day. You have to have a space where you do it, and you have to have your materials, like whatever they are, whether they're sculpture or video or a computer or whatever it is, however you manifest. And then you have to have a concept and subject for your material output. So those are the things to remember when you want to start a creative practice. You don't have creativity in the world. You may be very creative in your mind, but it's not in the world until you have evidence. So, and an intention, those are two things that make it art.
Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. I really love all these perspectives you're sharing, because this can be applied to anything, as above, so below, like the larger state of the world and the direction we're going in, which, we only know the present moment, right? Or it could be someone starting a business or someone going into the art world. So thank you for sharing all this advice. I'll only keep you a few more minutes. I have a couple more questions. I'm curious, and feel free to not answer this if you don't want to, but as a couple who's lasted, did you say 47 years?
Yeah.
That's, we know that this is like rare in, at least here in the Western world. I'm curious, do you feel that, let's say, psychedelics or MDMA, for example, played a part in solidifying your relationship? I'm curious if that you think had an effect.
Because we kind of bonded over, well, that first psychedelic experience in her apartment back then, it's been part of our journey. The medicine's been part of our journey. And so for us, the answer is yes. We know other people that have been together for a really long time, and it hasn't been a part of it. But I think that for many of the people who've explored these realms and these medicines, you see an opening to communication, and you're very transparent to your partner, and they can tell, if something's up with you, and so we become sensitive to each other, and in a sense, sacred mirrors. And another idea that Allyson came up with the title, not only the inspiration, but the title for the whole series. And so it's a great gift because this is an aspiration, but we each can be sacred mirrors and are sacred mirrors in some way, that we're able to, and what does that mean? Like how could we become mirrors of the divine reality and have that show up in our work? Because any kind of great sacred art is mirroring that divine reality, and so I think that the aspiration is the same. We're still working on ourselves. We still see, areas in both of our character and personality and things like that are still being worked on, and we're discharging stuff from our childhood and stuff. So in the context of a partnership that is intended to last, because both of us intend that, that that there's safety and trust in that kind of crucible, that we're able to get real and share, our deep soul stuff. So it's great to have a partner and a studio mate who knows your work and knows your, like your what you love and things like that, and can encourage that.
And that said, both Alex's parents and my parents lived together, married for 66 years, the duration of their lives. Okay. And they never did psychedelics. And so we know a lot of people who have maintained enduring relationships. And one of the things that is really important in that, obviously, is to evolve together, because you go through a lot of stuff, but also to hold yourself up to a higher level of, expectation of yourself, to expect more so that you can, be a good partner to this other person that you continue to love. And in being a better person, there's more love, and it's evolutionary. It feeds into itself very nicely. And of course, we've had obstacles, and we come to all kinds of stuff that we have to deal with, but never that we're not going to deal with together. So it's really important.
And you mentioned the one most important word, intent. You intend it to,
Intention.
yeah.
We're in it for the duration. Absolutely.
I have like tears in my eyes. I'm like, oh, this is my next manifestation.
I wish it for you.
Yes. And
I
it's
bless
funny.
you.
Funny, my ex-partner texted me right when we started our interview. We're good friends, but
That's good. That's very good.
Yeah. Exactly, right?
Right.
Next, on to the next. So I want to leave you guys a space, and I'm also curious. Can you share with the audience, what's happening at CoSM, what your plans are for 2022, 23 onward? Entheon is still being built. What else? I know you do a lot of these, the full moon ceremonies are still on YouTube. I just attended the puppet show for the equinox, which was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell people, what do you have going on, and what's your intention for CoSM in the coming future?
You want to start, or I can?
Yeah.
Well, we are on the verge of opening Entheon. And in the beginning of COVID, we closed, March of 2020. And we became a broadcasting center. Like, we do a couple of broadcasts, and one of them is on Zoom for members, and the other one is, for everyone, and we give them away for free. And we may do another program, a more open forum kind of program. We're thinking about that kind of programming. But our whole, thing here was that we would broadcast, because we didn't want to miss a full moon. We're working on our, what is it, John? Our 248th full moon consecutive, without a broken in the chain of full moon ceremonies since January of 2003, when we started them in our home in Brooklyn. So that kind of was a skeleton that kept us together. We had to keep going. And we became really better at it. Now we've done this wonderful puppet show, and we're going to continue to do, hopefully, one or two puppet shows a year. They're very labor intensive and creatively intensive. But the thing that we decided early in COVID was that we weren't going to reopen until Entheon opened. That was our goal, our mission, to build an enduring sanctuary. This is our enduring sanctuary. This is where the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors live, where they were not on view for about a dozen years after the city, our space on 27th Street opened, so, or closed. So now they're there, but we're not open yet. We still have the last piece, which is a big chunky piece, making those sprinklers pressurized, and it's an expensive trenching job, hooking into municipal water and blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is underground. No one will see it, but we have to do it to get a certificate of occupancy, to have people come in. So we decided to keep broadcasting and not open until Entheon opens. And that, well, it's just been a journey, right?
I know.
It's just been a journey, and we're going to do it in the next couple of months. I think we're going to have it done. We're trenching now. It should be done this month. I mean, October, the coming month. But this is perfect. We'll be ready, and we've had members and VIPs and things like that. So we've been showing people the interior, but we still have to open the all-one gallery, the gallery of the visionary art movement, because we have to bring paintings from all over for that. So we're waiting until the very end. And we're almost ready to go and pick those paintings up. And then we're going to have an opening, but we're just doing it kind of low-key, gradual, no big whoop, just open, and we'll be ready very soon. And then we want everybody to come, absolutely everybody to come, and we'll have more events. And we're working on our classroom. We're going to have a bigger, better classroom. It's going to be fantastic to give small, intimate, lovely workshops of 15 to 20 people. And the house will be here where people can stay, and it'll just be divine with the bonfire. We'll bring it all back.
I missed the cafe.
And the cafe.
I know the food was so good. Yeah.
We've actually had an artist in residence during COVID who did a huge wall. So there's some new things in there, but it's really exciting. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'm personally going to shout out joining their membership, because first of all, it's quite affordable. And second, it supports this incredible work. And third, you get all these really incredible surprises that I didn't expect. So I don't want to give them away, but let's just say I was very happily surprised being a member, getting like all this kind of cool stuff in the mail. So,
oh, good. I mean, yeah, members are so important to us, and we do bring members in privately and separately. So yes, if you're a member,
you get a preview of Entheon.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I can't wait to take a class. I actually have one of your, I think it's the flyer for the permaculture design course from like God knows how many years ago. And it's been on my refrigerator for I don't know how long. And I'm like, one day I'm going to go take that in person, but I'm patient.
That's so sweet. Yeah. Well, we'll have many wonderful workshops, I'm sure. Yeah. And
Well,
membership is so great. Do become a member.
the membership, it's kind of like there's no excuse, and it's supporting this work that to me is just really important, especially during these times, and keeping this living and going and getting your message and your word out there to more people. It was such an honor to be able to talk to you both. I really appreciate your time and you sharing your soul's purpose, your path. You know, I really get warmed by these stories you have from the early days and how it's shaped all that you've put out there and where you've gone. It's really just beautiful to look at how it's emerged, and I can't wait to see what keeps emerging next.
Well, we really appreciate you too, Beth. Thank you for the work that you do, and you bring it into the business realm and the art realm and just integrate it all together. It's so wonderful the way you do these conferences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
including us. Yeah.